Emotionally Unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday. I hope you are doing well. I'm doing really well. My sleep last night was absolute fucking garbage, but I was able to sleep in a little bit, so that was nice. And I had a really invigorating conversation with someone that I'm excited to release that episode. But anyway, about today's episode, I'm actually very excited. I'm a little nervous because I'm doing something different, and I guess, a tad nervous about how it's going to be received. But, I'll be doing what I feel is best and what I feel led to do, and I flowed with my intuition into this decision. So, today's guest is Davina Hain, and felt an instant connection with her. I know I'll be saying that about everyone, but, I just love my people so much. So we met, funny enough, on a day where we both had our kids home and, had our own struggles with that, whatever. And, Mama be bringing the tech issues even to her guests. So we had some tech issues. And at the end of the first conversation, you're going to hear this, but I was like, you know what? I feel like we should probably extend this conversation. So you will hear me invite her back at the end of this conversation to continue it. And though I will say, in listening to both conversations, the second one is not as much like the first one, but both are very real and our truths, and a lot of rawness in the second one, just about our struggles in this human skin sometimes. And I guess that's probably how I connect the most with people, is just when we can lay it all down and just be really open about the fact that it's hard to not be perfect. I'm getting emotional. It is hard. It's hard to not meet the expectations of others. It's hard to not meet our own expectations sometimes. And I think that's really been the journey for me in the lack of resistance theme is, I was telling this to someone the other day. I don't remember if it was on a recording or not. I hope it was, but I'm trying not to be so resistant to pain anymore. And I mean that from a different place than I've ever said that. Obviously, if we are becoming more emotionally available, we are welcoming of all emotions, but I fucking keep finding ways that perfectionism is sneaking up in my life. And I think that's one way that it really was I'm going to be able to do this thing very perfectly. And when I do, I'm not going to have to feel anything from it other than joy and love. And I know for myself that I learned the most valuable lessons in a moment of pain and in a moment of perceived weakness. So anyway, sorry, didn't mean to get all cryy over there. Not that I'm ashamed to cry, but sometimes I'm oh, are we off course here? I don't know. How do you feel about that? Anyway, so I'm saying all of that because above even the topic of conversation that we chose, I hope that you, and I believe this to be true with all of my episodes, is that you are able to connect with the fact that we're just humans having a human experience and talking about it. So, I've had to develop this fucking elevator pitch for my show, and I kind of never know if I'm on the right track with it or whatever in terms of how I'm explaining it to other people. But I guess that's how I would really say it is every day I get a little closer to home within myself. I feel like I've come home, but I'm really like burrowing into this home, if that makes sense. And I feel like my conversations with my guests get me a little closer to that. And so I hope that that shines through, especially today. But, okay, so like I said, Davina Hayden. So what she does is anger management and conflict tolerance, partnership, parenting, and sobriety. Not a therapist. She's a coach, but she's fucking really good at what she does. And I mean, I learned, it brought out some shit in me for sure. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you will hear us really talk about creating safety for ourselves and our partners to grow, because so much has been done to limit our own communication potential just because somebody else or ourselves is creating an unsafe environment for that communication to take place and the growth to take place. So anyway, today's conversation is the part 1. Part 2 will air on Friday. Again, I guess I'm nervous because I've never done it, but I don't know. It felt like I needed to, and it felt right. And even in editing, I considered putting both episodes together, but I did not want to cut that much out because it's so fucking real, man. And I also don't think it was a coincidence that I was able to even fit in another recording with her, because we happened to be home that whole week from ICE. So the day, like Thursdays are usually a day that I'm out all day long, and I wasn't. Excuse me. So again, timing felt right, felt purposeful, felt right. I'm gonna keep just saying right, I guess. Okay, well, we've gotten to a 6-minute intro here, so sorry about that. But yeah, I hope that you feel the way I feel when you're done listening to this. And I'm really excited for both conversations, so I hope you'll give both of them a listen and maybe give some feedback, give us a rating over here. If you have not rated my podcast, I'd love if you would do that. 5-star obvi, if you go to my link tree on my Instagram, you can actually, I think you have to access from your phone on both to be able to leave a review on Apple or Spotify. Those are the biggest 2 platforms that I stream on. I think I'm on iHeartRadio too, but I don't know nothing about it, so anyway, okay, I've rambled for 7 minutes. I'm so sorry. I feel a little more rested today. So, anyway, I also have PMS. So that's why you got a little crying version of me. Okay, 7.5 minutes. So sorry. I love you. Here's me and Davina.
Emotionally unavailable.
Honey, listen, I'm gonna let you know right now, this is the shit that happens to me every fucking day. And so you're sitting in front of someone who's very understanding. Do not let this stress you out at all. I promise.
This is a nightmare.
I know that you're getting hot and sweaty about it, and I feel you so hard, but you don't have to worry.
So I just relocated. So I used to have a full studio in my old house, and now I'm in a much smaller space. And so I'm still trying to figure everything out.
I'm sorry, man. I hate that stress.
No, this is my fault.
It's all right. We don't even have to assign blame. The weirdest shit happens to me every day. Like yesterday, so I just bought some actual a mic again. I started out with a mic and I was like, this is kind of bullshit. And then I'm guessing more. And some people really want you to have that shit. So I was like, fine. So I bought some shit, whatevs. Well, it picks up fucking everything. So I have to go into my closet with all the doors shut and do that. But it will still pick up a lot. And I was sitting there on a live one yesterday. Not fun, not cute the whole time because I'm pissed that I can hear my fucking dog barking and no one here to let her out. And I was like, fuck this shit. I was so upset. And I was trying to be engaged and happy like I normally am. And I was like, and I was so hot. The more upset I got, the more hot I got. And I was like, I texted my husband, have you left yet? Mina needs Bubba. He's like, no, yeah, I left 10 minutes ago. I was like, And then my oldest was asleep, and I was like, these people who let the dog out. Anyway, it was a whole thing. So I'm just letting you know,
No.
my heart is with you, and it is fine.
Yes. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna have to deal with some feedback. So if I end up awkward, this is why. Or taking unnecessary pauses.
I mean, and if you just want to turn the phone off and just like not be making eye contact the whole time, that's okay too. I want it to be easy. I don't want you to feel the way I was feeling during my whole damn thing yesterday.
I totally am. This is like,
well,
just learning curve.
Then just turn the phone off, and we'll just we'll make it work.
I want to see you though.
Okay, whatever you want, man. Whatever you want. Okay, so I just did like really quickly look at what you do again, because God knows I never remember what the hell I'm doing. But I think we're kindred spirits, because the whole professional friend thing, I was like, me as fuck. Like I've been toying with the idea of moving into more of a coaching space rather than like therapist, because I already call myself a non-traditional therapist, because I'm going to be careful about how I say this, but I'm not changing who I am versus like based off who I'm talking to. You know what I mean? So like, I'm always like, I'm not going to talk to you any different than I talk to somebody on my podcast or my family or my friends. Like, you are going to get me, because that's my gift, is the way I am. You know what I mean?
Right.
But some of that means like being pretty available by text, because I have some clients who just have very few friends, and I'm kind of their person, like, to share shit with. And I'm not gonna cut that communication off because of some fucking arbitrary rule. Like, well, and there's I have a client, and I don't think she'd mind me saying this, but the very first time I met her, I was like, okay, I hear you. And it was about a relationship. And I was like, listen, my therapeutic advice to you is very different than my advice to you as a woman. I'm happy to give you this advice, but it's not therapeutic, and what you're doing is not healthy. So I'm going to tell you that right now, but like, I could probably walk you through this, and like, it's a beautiful relationship that we have. I'm not going to like tamper any of that. So anyway, also I'm obsessed with your nails. So
Thank you. My sister just did them yesterday.
Oh my God, how fucking lucky are you that you have a sister who can do your nails?
Oh my gosh, she loves it. She begged me growing up. And for some reason, I was so resistant to her help.
Is she younger?
I think it's because I'm the youngest.
Oh, you're the youngest. Okay, yes.
Yeah. And now, yesterday, she was like, hey, do you want me to do your nails? And I was like, yes, I really do. And she just like melted. I've been waiting 30 some odd years for this.
Yes. Well, I love yellow, but my daughter always calls them, she's 10. She's, a little bitch, but she calls them pee-pee nails anytime I get yellow nails. And I haven't done yellow since I quit getting them done professionally. So I'm like so jealous. I'm like, oh, and it actually makes me feel better that it was your sister that did it. Like if one of my sisters, was cool enough to paint my nails, then I could have yellow nails again. But for now I can't. So it's whatever.
Well, I will be solo with the pee-pee nails. And I'll keep you in my heart with them every time I look down.
I've been wearing those fucking sticker ones,
Do they work?
They do. I love them. So, okay, There's a couple different ones. There's the straight up stickers, like the paparazzi or whatever that shit is. You know what I'm talking about? Like what is that brand? I think paparazzi's the jewelry. Oh, I don't remember. Dashing glitter or some dashing something, dashing divas. They have the straight up stickers, or they have the actual like gel thick whatever. The problem with that is you cure them, they stay on, but they lift a little bit and your hair gets caught in them.
Oh,
and then I've been doing the impress-ons that is just sticker straight up, like underneath to adhere, but the top is like a really thick gel layer. I mean, it's going to be hard for me to ever go back to professional, because I can wash my dishes. Because that was the thing, is I used to go every 2 weeks and get my nails done. $65. And within and she's the best of the best at you're putting really good nail polish on you. So it's like not anything she did, but
Yeah.
I would, all of a sudden be like, oh, deep cleaning the bathtub. And I didn't use gloves. So I'd be like fucking my nails. And I'd be like, $65. And I mean, I didn't want a single chip. I wanted it to be perfect. So I was like,
Yes.
and now I don't have to deal with any of that shit. So I don't know if I'm ever going to go back. I will for petties. For sure. I just was like sending her a funny TikTok a couple days ago. And she's like, I miss you. I'm like, I miss you too. I have one sliver of red left from when you did my toenails like 6 months ago.
It's a red French.
Yes. He said, that's kind of in right now. I was like, well, it's pretty thin. It's pretty thin sliver.
Is it just on the big toe? Is that the trend? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
we do what we can.
Myself, okay, so you do what? Anger management? You say what you do.
Yeah, so I do mental health coaching, but primarily within anger management. And I did not know what anger management was when I got trained in it.
Really?
All I knew is that my husband needed it and he was refusing to go. And so I wanted to infiltrate from within.
Well, yeah.
And so that's why I got certified in it. And now it's kind of progressed from court-ordered anger management into couples, families, family-owned businesses, conflict.
I love that. Can you tell me, because I know how my evolution has gone from what I thought it was to now. Like if there was a quick way to say what you thought it was and what you understand it as now, could you say that?
Yeah, I thought it was only about not Hulk smashing through walls. And it's about everything. It's emotion management, stress management, coping skills, boundaries, everything.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you why you call to my heart so strongly, because I was labeled angry my entire life, more by me than most people, because, with most people, because I kind of walked around triggered from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep. I had a really extensive history of childhood trauma that I didn't have a fucking clue how to deal with. So for most people just out in the world, my response would be freeze or fawn when they triggered me. And then somehow I would take that home and then lash out at everyone I loved. Right. But like, if you were close to me, you got some really heinous shit from me. And it started in childhood. Like I'd be tired and hungry, and my grandma, who primarily raised me, would be like forcing me to school clothes shop for far longer than like I had the capacity for. And I would just like snap. And I mean, snap like little, but still it was like, you're not allowed to show emotion in this family. So like, what the fuck?
Sure.
And also you're here to serve and please. So rub some dirt,
your role.
Walk it off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so she it started very young where she made me feel like an angry person, and that was the problem. And obviously none of us knew shit about trauma then. But as I got older, I really, really, really adapted that label and was like, oh, I need anger management. I need blah, blah. But it was also the single biggest source of all of my shame. So it wasn't something I was actually going to address, But then when I first started learning like about nervous system regulation, it kind of was like my first like ounce of freedom, because I didn't have to feel like I'm just a shitty person. Like there's a label here to work within, but just when I went through like a really severe mental health crisis a year ago, that was when all the pieces came together to like learn how to actually deal with this. Cause I was relying, like most people, on what finite amount of self-control and discipline I had. You know what I mean? So like, I was just like, oh, I have to be nicer. I have to control my temper. Oh, so much bigger than that.
Well, and yeah, it really is. And that's what so much of us that have traumas and these types of things, the anger is rooted in injustice.
Yes.
It's rooted in the times that I was victimized or felt taken advantage of or harmed, and I couldn't advocate for myself. And so now, while I'm sitting in traffic when this guy cuts me off, that's my opportunity. Right? Like
I'm saying do whatever the fuck I want. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. God, you're so right. And I've never put it into that context, to be honest. I mean, I will say like anger is something that we feel when we feel that something is taken without our consent. But like, yes, not having a voice really, really, that was it. Like, I'm not allowed to say anything ever about anything that's happening. And it was confirmed to me over and over and over. I've told several stories on the podcast just about trying to confront my caregivers and be like, that's kind of fucked up, and just the fucking unleashing that happened because I dare say something. And it really just taught me like how to be manipulative with my words, you know. Like, I just went to, like, I love writing and I've written a book and several and whatever, but really so much of that was just about perfectionism, because I could craft an image with my words or even destroy you with my words if that was my goal. But I would leave like room for me to be like, what did I say? I was just pointing out the facts or whatever, you know, like I was fucking mean. I mean, I really was. I'll say that from a different place than I used to say it, but like I was manipulating and trying to look perfect at all times. Even if the intent really was to just stand up for myself, I still had to be perfect about it. And so using my voice as like a podcaster, almost a year now, set me free, you know, because I will say, and I'm not afraid to not be perfect on here at all. I mean, like, I don't edit hardly anything out. I will edit if somebody says something that alludes to something like really offensive.
Sure.
Not gonna give any examples, but you know, like, I'll edit that out. But like, otherwise, you're getting exactly what happened, because I feel like that's my lane. And I try to just be really true to myself. But what do you think? Do you think most people are kind of thinking about anger management the way that we thought about it?
Oh, yeah. It's a deeply shameful thing. And first of all, can you hear my kids in the other room? Are you hearing them?
Do I hear a TV, maybe?
No, that's children.
Is it?
Yes. Let me switch this. Sorry.
That's okay. I literally put a sign on my door today because we're all stuck at home because of like icy weather. And I put a sign on my door and then the office where my husband's working. And I was like, Mom's schedule today, because it's jam packed. And so I'm like, don't be coming knocking on my fucking door left and right.
Yeah, you're gonna.
And then I put one on his because he doesn't work from home as much as he used to. So like our daughter will go in there and just fucking harass him. So I was like, Daddy's in a very important meeting from this time to this time. And then my door is like, we have like do not disturb signs and stuff for this, but nobody listens. So my heart is with you there too. Okay.
Here, I've turned on my noise canceling, so that should do it.
I don't hear anything.
Yay. Oh, okay. Finally, the tech issues are in my favor. So yes, anger management is a deeply stigmatized field. So it's either people who are required by their employer or the courts, or on the tail end of an ultimatum that came way too late.
Mm-hmm.
So that's almost always how I find people, is just rooted in shame. They're always the problem. They are just desperately trying to advocate for themselves, but just don't know how to effectively. Will shove it all down until they can't help but, volcano out.
Yeah.
And then their original complaint doesn't get addressed. And then they are still the problem. And they're the one apologizing repeatedly. And then that fuels this narrative of injustice.
Yes, because your needs still weren't met. Like you're
Never.
Still fucking getting fucked over in your mind because you tried and you think maybe that you did say something that you needed. But God, I remember those times too, just fucking psycho ass shit. Like triggered stream of thought, you know what I mean, when you get in that red place and you're just like, and then another thing, blah, blah, blah. I've said some really harmful shit to people in those moments, and I wasn't trying to. That's the thing. You don't want to hurt people when you're like this, and I'm never going to make excuse for like levels of abusive behavior for anyone and say you should give them a chance or whatever. But I am going to say we have to understand the root of those things, for one, so that we don't take them personally. You know, like that's what I teach a lot, is like, here's the other perspective. For one thing, I bet you're going to see a lot of you in that. But for two, It's not about you. This is just their world and you're living in it. And this is your world and they're living in it. And there's a collision and that's going to happen. Do you have like an equal split of like male, female clients? Like how, like, or do you only work with like women or like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so it's predominantly men.
Okay. Okay.
And because men aren't allowed to have emotions, right? Well,
Right.
they are, but it's only anger or happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And we aren't allowed to have anything but sadness and happiness. And so when we have anger, we're a bitch. When they have anything but anger, they are pussy, beta, weak,
Soft.
whatever
Yeah.
that is, right? So
Yeah.
men tend to suffer in silence. That's why their suicide rates are so high. That's why their substance use rates are so high. And that's usually where we find them. And I always warn the partners of my clients to make sure that they have the coping skills to hear complaints about them early and often, because then it switches
Yep.
and then she is the problem.
Yep.
And then she has the work to do. And so that's what I learned about myself too. In full disclosure, that was how my and my husband's relationship was. He
Yeah.
would have valid complaints. The way that he would go about expressing them to me was so offensive that
Yes.
then I couldn't look past that because I was feeling now upset,
Attacked.
offended, hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the
wounded.
whole issue becomes how you said it, not what you said. Nothing gets resolved because then he's got to go into over apologizing and managing you.
And then if he tries to go back to the original complaint and say like, "Well, this is what upset me," it feels like a cop out. It feels like
Yeah.
he's walking back that apology. And I
Yeah.
used to say that same shit like, "Oh, okay, so you're not really sorry. What are you talking
God.
about?" I
Yes.
was them too. And that's what I learned in anger management in my certification. I sat there and had this like sinking full sweat feeling of, "Holy shit, I'm part of the
Mhm.
problem." In
Yeah.
a very, very big way. No
Yeah.
wonder this dude is punching holes in the walls because I'm trapping him and I'm not letting him leave because I have abandonment and neglect
Oh
issues,
shit, you were
and
one of
I can't let him
those?
leave.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I kind of
him
was
staying
too, but no
there.
one ever tried to leave. So, like we were probably lucky in that way because I would have been like, wait, what? No.
No, my anxious attachment was just like, I would rather have you screaming in my face, saying vile shit
Hmm.
than going outside to take a break for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to
Yeah,
tolerate it.
I've seen that. And this is why, honestly, I do have a heart for men. I don't work with a lot of them because, well, I think probably if I'm being 100% honest, and I do have some male clients, but um, I'm still working through this narrative of like, you're not going to get shit over on me. You know what I mean? So I'm a little bit more naturally suspicious of men.
Sure.
But like, when people talk, and my heart is bigger for women because I'm a woman and we have some real fucking issues in this country. But
Yes.
but I'm not lost to the experience of men. I was raised with brothers, like I see the real hurt and the real pain that is just as present in them as myself and all the women I know. But sometimes people will be like, well, women, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't help. Sometimes we'll be like, I mean, men too, and they're like, I'm like, listen, I'm a
Yeah.
feminist. I didn't used to be, but I am. But like, that doesn't stop my love for humanity, and men are involved in humanity. So like, the
Yeah, it's an and.
yeah,
And that's where,
exactly.
like,
And
so many of us are so used to villainizing one side or the other.
yes,
And that's where it's all of us, right? If
yes,
our relationship is problematic, if our dynamic is problematic, we are both contributing. And in
absolutely.
certain factors, we will volley like who's the majority for
Oh
sure.
hell
And
yes.
it's an and.
Well, and that was one of my big wounds is like not feeling seen. And so like this is something I'm still working through sometimes,
Okay.
where I will maybe not give as much validation to his experience as to mine. Cause like, and I'll know I'm so fucking aware of it now, but I'll be like, yeah, I know that you're experiencing stress too, but mine matters more somehow. So like, I don't really know what we're supposed to do here. Cause like, I'm still stressed and you're not meeting my needs.
Yeah.
But, learning that shit, knowing that that's an issue of mine and knowing like different tips and tricks for like walking through that helps. And I do think both people in any partnership have to take accountability. It is not all one-sided for most things. And right now we are not talking about the outliers. So, if you're in an abusive relationship, obviously that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about normal shit here. So don't come for me. Anyway.
Yeah, no. No, and that's the hard part too, is that even on my social medias and things like this, I get so many people who are like, "Oh, you're making excuses for men." But
Would never make
not.
excuses
They're
for men.
explanations.
Right.
Like, this is where this comes from, and that's why I wanted to predominantly work with men, because there is that root of, we want her to do some healing. We want to prevent wounding to her. And the best way to do that is to help heal the ones who are the number one cause of female deaths,
Right. Exactly.
right?
I mean, if no one's
And
ever
so
willing
it's
to
root
understand a
cause.
male perspective and work with them, how the fuck are they going to get help?
Exactly, and that's why my entire practice was built around working predominantly with men, almost exclusively with men. And men don't seek the work until somebody forces them to. And
Right.
so now I'm much more rooted in couples, because my first few clients asked to bring in their partners.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of evolved into something different. And then my husband and I went through some shit nearly 4 years ago, and it made me realize how much it has to be it has to be a dynamic of both. And this is where whenever I work with couples, I work with her privately, him privately, or them, or however their dynamic is, and then also as a couple. So
Yes.
that just their relationship isn't my client, that they each have their own work to work on. Like, I had my anxious
Absolutely.
attachment, neglect, abandonment, just like codependency. And he had the complete opposite of the avoidant, the aggressive,
Oh,
run
absolutely.
for
But
the
you know what
hills
I
and I'll chase
noticed?
your ass all the way there.
Oh, fucking yes. That runner chaser dynamic. The episode that's releasing tomorrow, I was just giving it a listen and I was like, that we talked all about that. But you know what I noticed? And this is why I get really irritated with TikTok, because the whole like avoidant conversation where they pander to the girls who want their situationship to be a little different. You know what I mean? And they're like, here's avoidant attachment. And these are the two styles. Yes, yes, yes. I'm not going to take away from that. But here's what I've noticed in the work I did on myself during my mental health crisis, because I reached burnout in every area of my life. And I was like, I want to die really bad. So I had to get it all figured out. Right.
Yeah.
What I noticed is like, we are all avoidant. Women were also taught to rub dirt on it and walk it off, just like them, but it looked different. And we all kind of do the same shit. It just looks different. Like, when you can understand the root of why you do what you do, you then understand the root of why they do what they do is the exact fucking same. It just looks different. Like, maybe our wounding was created differently, but we all feel invisible. We all feel like we're too much or not enough. And we all feel like no one's ever there when it's me that needs the help. Like, the weight of the world is on my shoulders. That's not exclusive to men or to women, but because of how we fit into these like little gender boxes, we see what we see. And until you open that paradigm, you don't understand we really truly are doing the same thing. When I started noticing my avoidant tendencies, just because I ran anxious in an intimate partnership every time I was a fucking psycho, doesn't mean that I wasn't fucking avoidant in every other area of my life. I was actively practicing avoidance. So that's why I can fully understand when a man's acting like that, because I know why you do that. It hurts and you're afraid. You're afraid it's going to feel like that first time that you felt betrayal, or the first time you felt rejected or abandoned or neglected. You know what I mean? And it does hurt, but it never hurts as bad as like it did that first time. But we're so fucking afraid of it. We don't know that. I spent my entire life avoiding feelings, being up here, overthinking, overanalyzing, intellectualizing any experience, thinking though, I mean, I've been in this field for a minute. I wasn't a therapist until I like wanted to be, because I didn't want to do traditional shit. And that's what I would have had to have done, because I didn't have a greater understanding like I do now. But that is why I give therapy from my fucking soul, because I know what it's like to be in your dark night. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
we're all avoidant. It's not just a male tendency. You just haven't figured out how you're avoiding. So that's the thing that I do with a lot of, like, I don't do a lot of couples, but like, I don't also want to hear about your spouse the whole time, because you're in front of me. This is your world. Like, you created this, you attracted this. What are you doing? So like, yeah, you're going to notice that shit gets a lot better when this gets better. God, I'm just herbal tea. It really gets me going.
No.
I'm not going to lie to you.
No, I think it's this topic. This is life. This is everything that comes into it, right? Like that's why this is so challenging and it can be really hard to find the root cause of these things because we
Yes.
all have our shit. We're all wounded and
Mhm.
we're all told that everyone has their shit, so keep it to yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But
Minimalize,
that's why
trivialize.
yeah, and that's why men are some of the loneliest creatures on earth
Yeah, because
because
they're so
they
good at
suffer
telling themselves that.
and can't talk about it. They're not
Mhm.
allowed to talk to their friends about it. That's, we know all the
Feel
labels.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are wounded, and at the very least, we are encouraged to some degree to talk to someone about it.
Right.
We are much more likely to reach out to somebody like us because we know that we are external expressors,
Yeah.
and that's how we work these things through, whereas men tend to be internal expressors because they're told not to talk about it. Man up, walk it off.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
God,
where these
man
these
up, walk it off.
dynamics come
Ooh.
in. Oh
Yes.
god.
Yes. I have a brother who says that to all of his kids, and I've always been like, please fucking don't say that in front of me.
Well, and here's my issue with it, is that somehow there's all this, like, manliness and, like, addressing things head on and going, going after the threat before it has an opportunity to attack you, right? Except for when we feel a type of way.
Right. Oh, yeah. You run then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
we act like we don't see it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, I think that if I apply, because I don't think about like men in general a whole lot these days, but like if I apply what I know in the feminine and kind of what we were taught, because we were taught to serve to our own demise, it is our responsibility to fix our partner. Absolutely. And anticipate everyone's needs around you, especially if you were like the golden child of your family and you're like a good girl. Breaking out of those patterns is so hard. But then if you think about men, like my husband is the oldest of 5. He's literally one of the most avoidant people I know. And he was also raised in a Mormon home. So just a lot of different aspects to this family, right?
Yeah.
And he was responsible for those kids a lot in their formative years and in his like formative growing years. And so the messaging that he received, because his dad was military and he was gone a lot, they moved a lot, all kinds of shit. You're the man of the house now, but without any explanation of what that means, which it shouldn't have been said anyway, but every man in that generation was told that at some point or
Yeah.
another. You know what I mean? You're the man of the house. But like that's your first programming of what men do. And if you're left alone to determine what that is, and you learn like no one's going to help me walk through my really important emotional milestones. So I'm going to have to use my little baby filter and what little fucking knowledge I have of how this world works and figure it out. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no fucking wonder. The man, people pleaser to the max, but that's why he would just avoid most people. Cause like you only have so much capacity to people please. Right. And it's still a struggle.
His
And he still
narrative the whole time
disassociates
was put your own shit away and focus on other people. And so
absolutely.
his avoidance it's a lack of permission to be able to advocate for himself and focus on himself instead of just everyone else.
And I think like him listening to this podcast just to support me, like has taught him so much just about like me, first of all. So he doesn't take my shit personally. And then not because I'm still like verbally abusing his ass all day, every day, but like, he knows now why those things happened and what my motivators were. It wasn't to control him, it was to feel safe. And him being able to see kind of the parallels has been really helpful. And I was like, listen, I'm not asking you to like demonize your family, but I am asking you to reconcile with yourself the fact that your needs were in no way met and what that does to a human being when your needs aren't met, when you have nobody to help you go through really important shit. Sometimes they wanted to, but they didn't know how. Sometimes they didn't care. That's the truth. So you have to like look that shit in the face and be like, I don't have to hate you, but I do have to understand and hold space for the fact that my needs weren't met.
Yeah, I mean,
Then
this
you
is
can
their
have a hard
first time
time with
living
that.
too,
Yes,
right? Like,
absolutely.
and so that's where there's a difference between talking shit and describing your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of us kind of have that of, well, if I speak poorly about it, then I'm ungrateful. Then it's somehow, about them and
Mm-hmm.
me kind of passing the buck
Not
to them
taking
or becoming
accountability.
a
That's what I
victim.
hear from a lot of men. Like, if
Mm.
they were to acknowledge that, then they're blaming their issues on their parents. So many men, I'm going to use astrology here, men with a Virgo Pluto. That's what I keep noticing. They do not want to accept that their parents fucked up in any way, shape, or form to influence who they are today. Baby, you're in your 50s, so I'm certainly not saying that it's all their fault. You've had plenty of time to evolve. But I am saying the decisions they made when you were a child informed who you are today. But they are all like that. They will not say and tell you just like gently coax, but like their initials, like, I don't blame people. And you know who did that too? Me. I did that shit at like 20, 21, 22. Like, no, I'm fine. First of all, I'm fine because I wasn't a drug addict. I wasn't like meeting any of the statistics that were like 90% likely for me to happen. I didn't have a teenage pregnancy, surprisingly, but that was just because, like, God, I was being a virgin until I was married, but I didn't do that. But I did marry the person I lost my virginity to. That was my first husband. But like, just all of the things that we do because we think that's what makes us strong or brave, or, like, I talk a lot about, I don't want to be like, strong is not a compliment anymore. It was, and now it's like I was kind of forced to be like, I had two choices: take the road of my parents and a couple of my siblings, or this, do better, be better. Okay, I understand. Yes, it took some resilience, it took some bravery and whatever to do better, but like, I did have some really good people periodically in my life that like really steered me in a really good way, but I wasn't like strong. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
Yeah.
that just perpetuates. It's almost like body stuff. Like, I went through like I did keto and really just turned that into a real good eating disorder for a minute. And every time someone's like, "Oh my God, you look so good," just reconfirmed the notion that I
Doing
needed
what you're
to.
doing.
Yes, exactly. And so every time someone
Yep.
called me strong, I was like, "Oh, right. Don't talk about feelings."
I have to shove this shit down.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
what strong girls do.
I know. And that's where I really want to like rewrite these narratives desperately in like what man up means, in what strength means, and also in what anger means. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have an entire program. It's a self-paced one for people who don't want to work directly with someone because that can be intimidating.
Yeah.
And it's called Keep Anger because I want you to keep that. That's the part of you that's telling you that there's an injustice. That's the part of you that's telling you like, "Hey, hello, this
You have
isn't
a need
good,"
that's not
or
being
"This
met.
feels
Let's fix
unfair."
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we wanna keep the anger, just use it to avoid aggression, but instead to advocate, to speak up for yourself, and that's why it can be really hard that if I was unwilling to look at my own shit and see how I was, just contributing so poorly in my relationship and trapping my husband and setting him up for failure, and just because I wasn't Hulk smashing through walls didn't mean that I didn't need this work, because
Yeah.
I emotionally punished. I would emotionally withhold. I would use passive aggression and, like, instill guilt in people and, just, like, the very feminine way of doing it.
Oh, that was
But had
awful.
I been unwilling to see my own role,
Mhm.
we never would have made it, and I'm confident that our we would have ended in a very vicious way.
Yeah.
But that's what this is, where now when my husband reacts in a not ideal way, what I can do is kind of see past that and say like, "Okay, I don't appreciate the way that you just expressed that to me, and there's a reason why you're saying it, so tell me about that." Like,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
actually where's
Where
this
you
coming from?
don't, you're not taking a shit personally, you just get curious. Because I mean, yes, we're human,
Yeah,
so like your natural reaction is gonna be like, "Bitch, what?" But then
exactly.
it's really easy to be like, "Okay, and what?" You know what I mean? Like, what?
Mhm.
Why? You seem very passionate about what you're saying. What need wasn't met? Like what? You know? But to your point, I was just picturing like what would have happened if your husband was doing all of this work on himself and he came to a very unhealed you about any of that, and how much that would have confirmed the notion that it's never gonna fucking matter. Like nothing he ever does is going to be good enough.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that, how sad that breaks my heart to think about. Like, good for you for doing your work and good for all the partners out there doing the work. But like, think about what position men can possibly be in, because like there's a lot of unhealed women too. So if your man is doing the thing, and I actually had a client like this, so
Mhm.
like he's doing the work and she's just like, I mean, yeah, that's good, but you know, you still owe me X, Y, and Z from all the times that you fucked up. And you know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that's not about you. That's about her. How can I, and they ended up going to couples counseling with somebody else because he was just with me on an EAP. But I was like,
Yeah.
good luck with that, because she's in no way acknowledging her shit at all. I met her once for a family thing, and I was like, I just called everybody out on their shit right there and was just like, hey, you're showing some shit. But that's the thing, is that like you do have to have compassion for the fact that like some men are trying very hard. They don't have all the answers, they don't have all the tools, like they are trying. And so if you are so fast to just like shut them down because it's not what you were expecting, well, I mean, I know that was a big deal for me, was working on my expectations
Yeah.
of others. So
Yes.
that's
And
something
that's
that,
kind of what it was for us, right? Is that my husband had a crisis 4 years ago, and I describe it as our crisis because I'm so grateful for it. And at the time, it was just horrific. And I didn't know how we were gonna make it through. I didn't know how our kids weren't gonna come out just wounded as fuck.
mhm,
And he got sober, he got a mental health diagnosis, he got treatment, and then he was improving and trying to bring me along. And I was like,
you're the problem.
"No,
Yeah.
you haven't done penance. You haven't, like, done enough. I'm still so wounded
Yeah, when you were a
by what
Punisher
has
boy, that
happened."
energy is palpable.
Oh, and that's kind of where there is this kind of battle within me, and what I see in our partners is, if I support you in the work that you're doing, I'm somehow making everything from the past okay,
Mhm.
and I need you to know that it wasn't.
Right, and this is where I would get stuck, and sometimes still do. Who hate this? Fair. It's not
Oh,
fair because you didn't
it does.
receive a punishment equal to what I was feeling when that happened. Like, I'm so bad about that still. And now, like, I have all these fucking tips and tricks to work through it, but damn it, it still pops up to where I'm like, but that's not fair because you really fucking hurt me and I deserve to get to hurt you back. I don't want penance. I
Oh,
want to fucking hurt you back. And I want it to hurt the
that's
same way it
exactly
hurt me.
and that's exactly what I told him at the time. It was like, "I wanna do the most vile fucking shit.
Yeah.
I want to just be deceitful. I wanna hide in these things." Because in my husband's alcohol use, it felt like infidelity.
Yeah.
It felt like it was years of this,
Well,
of
lots of betrayal
lying
in
about
there.
things, hiding
Yeah.
so much voluntary betrayal, and
Yeah.
also the f what I was forced to do was completely doubt my own perception of my own reality.
Yes.
Because when I see that you're different and I smell like a tinge of something and you are swearing to me up and down, I will start questioning my own intuition. I will start questioning my
Right.
own judgment. And I was so resentful of that. I was
Mm.
so envious of the fact
Well,
that
you
he still got
self-betrayed,
this
yeah.
partner who would do
Mhm.
that,
Yeah,
who would still stick, who was willing to question themselves and abandon themselves
yeah,
for sake of you.
yeah.
And then
So
that
what
was
are you
my own
gonna
work
do
to
to make
do.
up for that, bitch? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I feel you, dog, because
Ugh.
I mean, yeah, that so much of that. But thankfully, I've been such a fucking lunatic that I really even the score, so we're fine. He
You know?
probably got way worse from me than I ever gave, but it certainly didn't feel that way. Like then, it felt just the injustice. But that was what I like to say is that we create this social contract with expectations that we never communicate with other people. But the problem with the contract is like that other party in our mind has signed it in their blood, and I have signed it in my blood, and this contract is legitimate. We will adhere to it. And then I never communicated any of those expectations, first of all. Second of all, they were very unreasonable, never could have been met to begin with. And so when you don't meet the expectation, I am so fucking betrayed. When I learned what betrayal felt like for me, that's when I noticed this is what betrayal and neglect all the time. All the time they pop up for me. Betrayal is probably daily, neglect is at least every other day. Like to where I'm like, okay, like this is not good. That like I'm alone.
So sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
When I say this shit happens to me, I mean it. Like, I feel like I'm the
My
one
goodness.
causing other people's tech issues too sometimes.
I probably am. The learning curve is so steep. It's insane.
Yeah, that's why I really have just stuck to the basics, because anytime I try to get cute,
This is what happens.
it's not good,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, what were we saying? I forgot to take medicine and my ears are hurting.
No, both of us doing the work. Oh, the unfairness.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
Yeah.
I know. And that's what I've just had to radically accept, is that it just won't be fair.
Right.
If you
Right.
have the expectation that it should be, everything will feel like a violation of that. But if
Right.
you go into it saying, okay, there are certain times that things are definitely unfair for him, and I'm not advocating
Absolutely.
for that. And so how can
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
pivot that a little bit?
Right.
It's a give and take.
I think like just in this last week, well, because when I got to this place where I was like, how do you want to feel though? Like, like I've
Mm.
done healing. I'm not focused as much on him because he's always been kind. And my needs and my expectations have changed. So it's like that's what I've tried to tell him is like, well, you've always assumed you don't have shit to work on because you're not yelling and you're not, fucking creating chaos in the house, but you
Yep.
are avoiding and you are not growing in areas that you need to be growing in, like the people pleasing. But I've like gotten to a place where it's like, I can't think about you, man. So like, I very much am like, how much do I want to let any given scenario rob me of peace? So like this last couple of weeks, I've really leaned into this, like, I'm not thinking about yesterday. I'm not thinking about tomorrow, not even this morning or tonight, right here. How can I be present and mindful in this moment to honor me? Like, it's not about what is and isn't fair. It's about how much of my life I'm giving up in this, sought after fucking perceived justice. And like,
Yes.
it's never going to feel fair because it was your betrayal to deal with. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is my betrayal wound that is wide open at all times. And while I heal it slowly but surely, it gets smaller, but it is the first thing hit. The first thing,
Yes.
besides neglect. Those two things come up for me all the fucking time. So
Yeah.
it's not his fault. He didn't create those wounds. He's just easy to hit them because he's the closest to me. So
Right.
it is what it is. How much of my life do I want to give away to that?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it's, yes, he wasn't the one who wounded you, and he's picking at a scab.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll bleed on them. And that's really what I think so much of this work is the pride that we have in ourselves is typically in not having to address.
Yeah.
And instead, the pride that I now have in myself, and my husband does, he's nearly 4 years sober. He's doing beautifully. I'm so fucking proud of him. There's that part about like, if these things are coming up, then that's just what I have to work on. That's what's telling me where I need to put the work. And
Yes.
my pride now is being able to react poorly at times and then be able to recognize it and then modify instead of just like living in this like guilt and shame doom loop and then expecting everything to somehow get better by just avoiding it. And I have 2 boys. I'm raising 2 men.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want is to, well, I'll create some wounds. I don't know. They're going to be in
Absolutely. That's
therapy
our
in 30
soul's
years
purpose.
too, just trying to figure out what I did wrong.
Yeah.
But I can feel confident in the work that I'm doing now that I am making active choices to be present and in order to hopefully prevent harm. And I'm causing harm. Unintentional,
Sure.
intentions typically lead to poor impact. So it's more so about what can I do that I think will benefit. And I'm being mindful. I'm doing the work on myself. I'm leading with a sense of pride. I'm teaching them of adaptability and resilience and emotional intelligence. And that's that's all I can do. But the
Absolutely.
pride that I have in myself is so much more within the work that I'm doing. And that's where so many of my clients end up seeing this. Many of the men that I work with end up leaving their marriages because when something's threatened, they want to hold on to it stronger, but only because it's being taken away, not because it's actually what they want.
Right.
And so they get the permission to choose for themselves and advocate for themselves. And then we get to see what to do with it.
Yeah, because, the way a woman and a man react to feeling trapped are very different sometimes.
100%.
And that's so much of what we see is that, like, are you happy? Like, is this fulfilling? Like, if all these variables changed, is this who you want to be with? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I remember talking to a male about that one time, like, well, what if divorce wasn't worst case scenario? What if it was best case scenario?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have all these, oh God, what ifs? What if the what ifs were more positive? What if you just changed the paradigm around it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. The energy toward the fear of the what if in the negative way is just as reasonable to put that toward the what if in the positive way. Like, what are you gaining
all
from
the time? Yeah, if you're going to sit around
Yep.
fucking wondering about the worst case scenario, I'm going to invite you to do that on the opposite end of the spectrum. And let's think about what the best case scenario could possibly look like, even with what you are saying is the worst case scenario. Like, that really could be the thing that ends up changing your life in the best way ever. Because, well, it's kind of like as moms, sometimes we see certain like sensitivities in our children that we label as weaknesses,
Mhm.
like ADHD, like, I have a kid on the spectrum, and those are his strengths when he learns to master them, like that becomes part of the best things about you when you get to the light side of them and not the shadow side of them.
Well, and when you have a parent who encourages the abnormal, the atypical, these types of things to be what makes you unique and wonderful, as opposed to how we were raised, which was like standardized. If you deviate from the norm, there's something wrong with you.
Virgo, Pluto,
and that thing should be rooted in shame, right? And so that's where what I'm trying to do is attempt to heal the next generation by preventing the wounds. And so that's why I specialize with parents now.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm trying to do is that when we see kids who go to therapy, there's good outcomes. When we see parents who go to therapy and the kid doesn't, there's, what is it, quadruple the positive.
Yes.
And that's really what I'm trying to do. And so I'm starting this, it's a virtual group called the Parental Shift. And it's helping parents come together. And because it's a pilot, we're doing the first 30 days is completely free. And I just need feedback. I just need people to tell me what's working, what's not, and where do you need me? And so we meet weekly, we chat in between. It's really creating a community because when I started doing this work, the people closest to me were the ones who showed so much resistance. Not because they're selfish, not because they're, bad people. I've conditioned them to expect a certain version of me. And now I have changed it and they're giving me some pushback naturally. I'm going against their expectations.
Yeah.
And so I want us to have a community of people who are also doing this work, who will also fuck up, who will also do and say the wrong thing and know how to get back on track instead of kind of just going down that doom loop.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Let's schedule another one. So, because I know you didn't get to say everything that you want to say because I'm a talker and you had shit. So
I had shit. Yeah.
So if you want to, I would love to further this conversation.
I would love to.
And send me any links to the shit that like if you like are giving an offer or whatever. But if the Calendly link from Instagram messages doesn't still work, just let me know. I'll send you another one. This is an important conversation.
Thank you. I agree. And I'm so sorry. I will have my tech issues.
I do not want you to apologize at all. I'm serious. I don't give a shit about any of it. I just know, I know there's so much more to say. So I just want to give you that opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And I've been listening and it's really great. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're doing a beautiful job.
Thank you.
It really is incredible. You're giving life to this and giving permission to people to not live within this perfectionist, any of it. And just it's raw, it's real, it's out there. I love it.
Thank you.
And I respect the hell out of what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Use the link in email.
Okay. Good luck in your next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hey, what do you say? Listen, first and foremost, please make sure that you have provided this podcast with a 5-star rating on whichever platform that you are listening. If you want to support the show, please rate, like, and share. Also like, comment, and share on any social media posts that you see from me on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Please follow the podcast Facebook, Emotionally Unavailable Podcast. You can shop my fun online store or schedule a one-on-one with me at emotionallyunavailablepodcast.org. I'm offering what I'm calling non-traditional counseling, astrology readings, and tarot readings. And thank you so much for listening to the Emotionally Unavailable Podcast.
Emotionally unavailable. Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.